Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel, the Let's Talk to Cutler Virtual Book Club, the Let's Talk to Cutler Virtual Broadcast, and where we get a chance to spend these 1,800 seconds together. And I have a couple things that I want to chit chat about. It is another Tuesday where we spend these 1,800 seconds together. It is the 12th of November. Wow, can you all believe it? It's the 12th of November already. Half the month is just, it's soon half of the month will have already passed by. And I hope y'all are doing okay. Let me just adjust this. Just adjust the screen so I can just sit back and chat and see how everybody is doing. If this is your first time stopping by, I just want you to know that this, what this platform is all about. This is about inspiration. This platform is for inspiration. It is for motivation. And it is also to challenge ourselves to be the best version of ourselves, even in the worst of situations. You know, the goal is to make sure that we've talked enough and that we have programmed ourselves where it's natural to show up your best self even in the worst of situations. And as you all are coming on in, make sure that you say hi to everybody, bring something to drink, something to snack on for these next 1,800 seconds. I'm just trying to help save somebody's life because life is happening and we have those moments where we can fall into pitfalls, we can fall into hurdles, we can run into roadblocks and those sorts of things. And the goal is to make sure that whenever we respond in such a way that our character is not impugned, our integrity is not questioned. And so it's a chance for us to chit chat. It's a chance for us to talk. It's a chance for us to see what are the things that are happening in life whereby we need to make sure that we can be accountable to ourselves. We can be accountable to someone else. We can check ourselves. We can check someone else in our circle, in our space, in our village to make sure that, hey, you know what? This is how you respond to life. I said in one setting last week that one of the things that we need to do is to be careful that we don't always overreact, but we should make sure that we respond. Don't just react automatically. Don't react out of autopilot, but make sure that before you react irresponsibly, that you stop, take a breath, and you respond. And we're going to continue that conversation, just a little twist on it this evening, because we're going to talk about how to deal with disappointments. I've been talking with people over the past few days, and some of the people have been talking about, hey, Cutler, I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. And as am I, and I want to talk about that. How do we handle it? Okay, because that's a situation where you want to make sure that you show up your best self, even in the worst of situations, in the worst of your situation, in the worst of your sadness, in the worst of your disappointment. You want to make sure that you still show up your best self. All right, so we're going to chit chat about that, and I'll shout out the LTTC VIPs in just a moment. But if this is your first chance to, if this is your first time in this space, in this circle with me, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And after you subscribe, click on the notification bell, because it lets you know whenever I've gone live. It lets you know whenever I've uploaded new content. So I'll shout out the LTTC VIPs in just a moment, but I'm going to start the conversation because I want us to talk about how do we deal with disappointments. And one of the things that you may ask, well, you know, what is a disappointment? How do I characterize something as a disappointment? How do I classify it as a disappointment? Exactly what is a disappointment? One of the things I can tell you that how do you feel about it? Because I will always ask people, what does that look like for you? And I can tell you what disappointment looks like. It's this negative emotion. It's this negative emotion that you experience when there's an outcome that doesn't really match up with your expectation. That's what a disappointment is. It is a negative feeling that you deal with whenever an outcome does not match up with your expectation. And I know within the context of political outcomes, this may not necessarily be the same for everybody, but I want to talk about it in a broad sense, because there are people in my village, in my circle, in my space, who are dealing with disappointment, who have asked me, how do I handle disappointment? And they probably asked because disappointment brings along with it a lot of baggage. So even if you can't relate with this conversation in terms of where we are contextually in a political sense, in a political arena. Think about just life in general. So you experience this negative emotion because the outcome really didn't match your expectation, and it brings along with it all this other baggage. It brings along sadness. It brings along anger. It brings along frustration. It brings along this sense of loss. It brings along this sense of disappointment, and all of those things are inevitable. At some point in life, you're going to feel, you're going to experience, you're going to find yourself sitting in those spaces, and it's not always easy to deal with, even if to some, it seems like it's just a minor setback. It's a minor disappointment, but it's not always easy to deal with because you could have been so vested in the outcome, and the outcome was not what you expected, until you find yourself sometimes feeling overwhelmed with this disappointment. And it is normal. Let's just call a thing a thing. It's normal to struggle. It's normal to feel overwhelmed by disappointment. It really is. But you have to also remind yourself, it's possible for me to work my way through this thing. It's possible for me to maintain a good mind frame. It is possible for me to stay level-headed. It is possible to do all of that. And you have to remind yourself that even in the midst of disappointment, it is possible to keep my head above water, because for some people, being very disappointed way, way, way too long, it can lead to what some people will call chronic stress. And you don't want that. You just don't want to deal with that at all. You find yourself in this space of disappointment, and you deal with it, and you linger in it, and you waddle in that, and you find yourself going into depression. You find yourself dealing with chronic stress, and that is not what we want to happen. Disappointment, it happens when thoughts and expectations are not aligned. It happens. Your expectations and your hopes for some situations, you may have to say to yourself, let me reassess, let me reevaluate, let me recalibrate, see what's going on here. But the goal is not to sit in the space of disappointment for too long, because when you sit in the space of disappointment for too long, it leads to things that are just not healthy. And I want to talk about that. I want to make sure that we find ourselves not lingering in that space or in that place or experiencing that for too long. All right. It is a reality. Yes. It is a reality that some people are dealing with and have dealt with and may deal with for a while. But I need us to talk about that. I need us to really hone in on how do we handle that. Let me just shout out the LTTC VIPs for just a moment. The first 3 people that I see coming into the chat this evening. I see some others and some others who haven't even made their way into the chat. I do see you, but I want to shout out Annie Cutler, Linda Martin, and Paula D. It's so good to see you all. I see everybody in the chat, so it's so good to see all of you all. But so tell me this, you all, have you ever dealt with disappointment? Have you ever been disappointed? That's the question on the table. Have you ever been disappointed? And you have to ask yourself now, how did I handle that? How did I deal with it? And I'm going to suggest some ways perhaps that we can deal with it, because there's something I'm disappointed by the outcome, by the process. And I'm also not just disappointed with the end results, but I'm disappointed in some people. And I think that is the biggest thing for me. And so for me, I had to walk myself through how to handle the disappointment that I'm dealing with, not necessarily the disappointment in the final result, but I'm disappointed in some people. And I'll share my mindset, because at one point I was thinking, wow, I discovered that I was disappointed because I said, wow, it seems to me, and this is just me sharing, you all, this is a moment of transparency, and you all know this is what I do. I can only be me, and I can only be transparent. I was saying to myself, wow, it is so interesting that some people can be so self-absorbed in their success and in their joy to the point where they ignore other people's pain and anxiety. And I was thinking, that's exactly what it is for me. For me, my disappointment comes across, or it happens because I find that there are some people in my space, in my circle, in my village, who seem to be so self-absorbed in their joy and in their success and in what they want. Here we go. So self-absorbed in what they want, to the point where they ignore not necessarily what I want, but they ignore what I need. They also ignore my pain, and they ignore my anxiety. And I thought, I'm disappointed in them. really, really disappointed in them. And so you can see there where the outcome did not align up with my expectation. And that's what disappointment is. It is when the outcome does not match one's expectations. And then I had to step back and say, Cutler, there's a way that you need to process that. There's a way that you need to handle that. And you don't need to sit in that for too long. And you don't need to deal with too much anger and too much frustration and too much anxiety for so long. I'm being honest, you all. I had to walk and talk myself through this thing because, I saw myself within certain contexts just unfriending people, not wanting to be bothered with people, not wanting to deal with people ever again because it is that serious. It is that serious because for me, I saw some people in my space and in my village, in my circle, in my community. I saw them following things and clinging to things that really didn't mean me any good, or things that caused me anxiety, things that caused me pain, things that caused me woe. And I thought, all right, do you hear that you're supporting something that causes me anxiety? Now, I didn't hear it stressing you or causing you anxiety or causing you to feel oppressed. I didn't hear you sharing that at all because I listen very carefully when we talk about things that will affect us. And so for some of my people that I called friends, I didn't hear the woes and the anxieties that were at a personal level that chipped at them and caused them to feel oppressed. All right, so let me just keep on going so I won't stay there. So then I thought, Cutler, how do you handle the disappointment? And what advice and counsel, what would I say to people in terms of how to handle the disappointment? And some of these things you may be able to deal with, but in some things you may not be able to do to take or handle. But to take what you can, because I'm just really here to help us this evening, so that we can again show up our best selves, even in the worst of situations. In the midst of your disappointments, you still want to show up your best self. All right. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is to give themselves time to reflect. Try to make sense out of what went wrong. Now, let me just say this, y'all. Within some contexts, we can't make sense out of some stuff. You just can't make sense out of some stuff. You can't make sense out of how a person could be elected when they received 70 million votes in 2020 and they received 72 million votes in 2020 and they lost, but they received 2 million less than that in 2024 and they won. You can't make sense out of that. You can't make sense out of how one party who was a part of the other party, part of the same party that ran in 2020, how that individual could receive 14 million votes less than in 2020. That means you had about 14 million people who just didn't get out a vote, just didn't do anything. And so you can't make sense out of that. But then you try to make sense out of the people that did not, that just didn't see eye to eye with you. And so you grieve your loss and you think about why the disappointment happened. And again, for me, it was just thinking that, okay, things that are important to me, things that were important, things that are and were and will continue to be important for me, apparently were not that important for some of the people connected to me. And that caused a lot of angst and anxiety and hardship and woe. And I thought, okay, I see it. I see it. There are some things that you can ignore because they don't affect you. And even if they affect you, it's not that important to you. It's not as important to you. And so when I think about my village and my space and my circle, it causes me to reevaluate and reassess who needs to be there, on what level. All right. So I'm giving myself time to reflect. I'm giving myself time to try to understand why I was disappointed. And I thought, perhaps you didn't take the time to look at, this is me talking to myself, Cutler, maybe you didn't take time to assess your values against the values of people in your space and in your circle. And you put too much stock, as my grandparents would say, you put too much stock into what you thought were the values of other people. All right. So just give yourself time to reflect. That's one of the things. And then maybe, just maybe, as I have done, you might need to adjust your expectations. You can adjust your expectations. That is a critical tool in getting over feelings of disappointment in people. Particularly, I'm talking people that there's some people that you just can't do anything about. But I'm talking about people that I know, and I was just utterly disappointed with some people. Disgusted even, but disappointed. I'm just being honest, you all. And I'm talking from a place of trying to get us beyond this disappointment, because you can't stay there long. You can deal with it, you can give yourself time to reflect, but you just cannot stay there. Because you feel disappointment because things didn't turn out a certain way and people didn't do a certain thing. And so now maybe you need to readjust your expectations. That's what I'm doing. I'm just readjusting my expectations and saying, okay, what was important to me apparently is not important to him, her, him, her, him, her. Apparently it's not important. Or certainly it's not as important. So I've adjusted my expectations and said, okay, Cutler, stop expecting people in your space to hold certain values as important as you do. Lesson, got it. So I'm adjusting my expectations. I'm making sure that I give myself time to reflect. And then I'm making sure that I don't let the disappointment linger, because what did I say earlier? It can lead to chronic stress, and you don't want that to happen. It can lead to depression, and you don't want that to happen. It's okay to take some time, because really your disappointment brings with it a certain kind of grief, but try not to focus on your negative emotions for too long, because it affects your psyche, it affects you spiritually, it affects your soul wealth, it affects your mental health, it affects your physical health, it affects all of that. And you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself holistically. So again, acknowledge your feelings. And then one of the things that you can do is practice self-compassion. Cutler, why would I need to practice self-compassion? Because you can say, I misjudged. I made a bad judgment in terms of what I thought their values were. And go on and forgive yourself for misjudging, misassessing, mischaracterizing. So just go ahead and practice some self-compassion and say, you know what? Forgive yourself. You didn't get it right. You missed the mark. And then realize that disappointment is going to continue to happen. It's inevitable. For as long as you live, you're going to deal with some kind of disappointment. It is going to happen. So stop trying to bottle up your emotions and act like they're not real. Sit with them, process them, tolerate them, do what you need to do. Again, look at your expectations. What did I expect? Okay, so maybe I expected the outcome would be what the outcome is, but maybe I didn't expect the outcome would be what the outcome is because certain people did what they did. Are you all with me? Yeah, I get it. The outcome may be what it is, but I'm just more disappointed that the outcome is what it is because certain people did what they did. And maybe I misjudged. So then, I forgive myself. Disappointment is going to happen. And so then, what other thing do I do? I sit back and say, all right, change your perspective. Look at things from a different angle. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And then ask yourself, and this is me saying, ask yourself, why do you feel let down? And then when you reach that and you're taking time to deal with your disappointment, just be patient. And again, you all heard me say within one context, I was going to unfriend and do all of this because I just did not want to be associated with people who did not place certain values as high as I placed them, or who didn't place certain things as a value in their life. And so I had to say to myself, Cutler, don't make any rash decisions. Don't go on autopilot. Don't react. You said to the people last week, don't react, but take a breath and respond. And I had to do that. And so I had to make sure that I avoided making decisions or acting impulsively. And I had to make sure that it just stopped and I stayed away from social media so that I could settle my mind. I encourage you all to do the same thing. Just don't make any rash decisions. Just settle your mind. Just don't go cutting people off just because. So, but be rational. And as you're being rational, again, I'm going to say this, you all, because it is true, and I'm committed to this. I am so serious about this. There are some things that were just critical and important to me this go round. And there are some people, and you all know, those of you who know me, you know that I'm a very spiritual person. Absolutely. And there are some friends and colleagues of mine who just over spiritualize in everything. And, you know, they're having wonderful visions and divine revelations and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, you had visions and divine revelations about people and individuals who bring an oppressive kind of mood and mentality, but yet you over spiritualize it when you yourself are among those who could potentially be oppressed. And I just thought, really? So then I'm telling you all, I just had to do some thinking so that I just didn't cut people off rationally. Y'all talk to me, because this is one of those moments probably when it says, let's talk to Cutler. This is probably a moment when it should be Cutler. Let's talk to Cutler. I know Cutler's really talking to us, but this is one of those moments where, hey, y'all, let's talk to Cutler. But am I making sense to anybody? Has anybody thank you, Tracy. Tracy says yes, recently, because I asked, have you all had to deal with disappointments? And yet Tracy said yes, recently. And I'm asking us, I'm hoping that this is helping us, you all, because we need to bounce back from this emotional place. So one of the things I'm going to say is surround yourself with people. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with strong people. Surround yourself with caring people. And for me, when I find that there are people who just don't care, then I just can't surround myself by them anymore. I can be affiliated with them on an ancillary or tangential manner, but not having direct access to me any longer. I just can't do that, because there were some things that were critical, some things that are really, really important. And what I need to do now is to get back and bounce back. And I read something by one author who says, get your feel good flowing again. So that's where we are. I'm in a space where I'm trying to encourage us to get your feel good flowing again. What does that mean? What does that, here we go. Here's Cutler. What does that mean? What does it look like to say, get your feel good flowing again? It means that you need to find people who are worth your pain. Because if you're dealing with pain, if you're dealing with anxiety, if you're dealing with frustration, if you're dealing with worry, if you're dealing with any of those things, find people who are worth that, who are worth your experience, and who are worth your wisdom, who can walk with you through and in those spaces, and they are worth sharing. And you say, you know what, this is a person worth me sharing my experience with because they care. This is a person worth me sharing my frustrations with because they can help me. This is a person worth me sharing my hurt with because they can execute and show compassion. This is a person worth me showing my worry with because they can help calm me and help bring peace in a chaotic situation. And moreover, this is a person worth me sharing my wisdom with, the wisdom of my years, the wisdom of my pain, the wisdom of my hurt, the wisdom of my anxiety, because the hope is that in all of those things, we have learned something. So that is why when I say find people who are worth your pain, listen, pain teaches you wisdom. Anxiety teaches you wisdom. All of these things teach you wisdom. So find people who are now worth who are worth your pain. A lot of our greatest lessons are born out of adversity, are born out of struggle, are born out of pain, are born out of anxiety, are born out of feelings of being overwhelmed. And sometimes the greatest lesson and the greatest wisdom that is obtained comes out of that. So find people who are worth your pain. I was just thinking earlier today and I wrote it. Don't waste your pain. Don't waste your pain on people who are not worth it. But take it as a learning experience and get back in the game and get your feel good flowing again. We were down for a few days. Yes, I'm one of them. I was down for a few days and still feeling kind of down when I think about it now, particularly some of the people. Goodness gracious. But I'm telling you, it is important, you all, to get back in there and get your feel good flowing again. It is important to take this as a learning experience because, again, I know if you're like I am, you're just not disappointed with the outcome, but you're disappointed in some people. Yeah. Yeah. Some people who just didn't do anything. Who just didn't do anything. But don't linger on that. Get back in the game. Get back in the game because the game needs you. And the game just didn't stop last week. But the game is still going. Life is still happening. And you still have something to offer. You still have somebody to mentor, somebody to help, somebody to lead, somebody to guide, somebody to motivate, somebody to inspire, somebody to encourage, somebody to lift, somebody to push, somebody to pull. You are still needed. And you can't be your best you if you're down in disappointment. And so I call all of us to a place of up. I call all of us back to a space and a place of victory, of success, a space of it's going to be all right, a space of I have someone who is still on my side who's larger and higher than I. So call us back to realization of that. And I call us back to getting our feel good flowing again. Don't stay in disappointment. It's a part of life, but it was never meant for us to stay there because guess what? We don't wear it for a long time. Because the longer you wear it, the longer it weighs you down. So I'm calling us all out of that place. Because the truth of the matter is, you did what you did. You did what was right by you. Keep on going. And others, and here I go, others did what they thought was right by them. And so they were equally entitled to do what they thought was right by them, just as I am entitled to do what I thought was right by me. The problem is when we look at their right and our right, and they're not congruent. That's where the challenge comes in. But this is just one of those moments when you have to say, life keeps going. Life keeps going. I'm in there and I'm in it to win it. And let's keep doing what we do, you all. Let's keep going. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Let's keep our heads up. Let's keep our hopes up. Let's keep our disappointment down and our joy back up. Come back to that place where you get your feel good going all over again. Back to the place where you know who you are and you know whose you are. If you have to realign your expectations, do that. Give yourself time to reflect, do all of that, but keep right on going. If you need a little more time to acknowledge your feelings, do that, but keep right on going. Don't stay in that place. Don't you dare stay in that place too long because your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health is worth much more than that. Don't stand there. Don't let the results stress you out. Don't let the people's foolishness stress you out. Yes, I said it. Don't let that foolishness stress you out. Let's keep doing what we do, you all. And please know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. I hope this to some degree has encouraged and inspired and helped somebody. Because again, it comes from a space of just transparency. All right. And so until the next, I hope, by the way, I can't end this broadcast without saying happy Veterans Day. to those who served and are serving, happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service. Thank you so much for your service. I'll see you all the next time I see you. Good night. Bye-bye.